Speed. For mortals doomed to such minute lifespans, it is the ultimate temptation. The faster they complete their menial tasks, the more chores they can squeeze into the brief existence allotted them. But should they go too fast, life can grow even shorter. In the early 1990s, Sega would exploit this ruinous mortal desire to blacken the eye of their greatest rival. Nintendo spent years releasing games in which adorable characters walked slowly to the right, leaping onto platforms and enemies. But Sega dared imagine a game in which an adorable character walked to the right, leaping onto platforms and enemies, but slightly faster. Thus, Sonic the Hedgehog was born. Obsessed with speed, Sonic seeks to outrun the power of death through athleticism and attitude alone. The original Sonic the Hedgehog game is a passable demonstration of these abilities, but in the superior Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Sonic moves briskly to the right across a greater variety of stages, now armed with a welcome spin-dash maneuver, and aided by his new sidekick, Miles Tails Prower, a cunning fox who dies 1,000 deaths, only to be reborn 1,000 times again. As in the first game, Sonic's goal is to defeat the science-obsessed Dr. Ivo Robotnik, who seeks to give Sonic's animal followers new life as violent automatons, and eventually live forever himself through the power of mechanization. Therefore, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is the clash of three competing visions of immortality. There is Sonic's quest to use his great speed to outrun death, Robotnik's efforts to render mortality obsolete through science, and Prower's endless cycle of death and rebirth. Gorganx, this could be relevant. Do you not experience a similar life cycle?
I guess you could say that. I'm part of an insectoid hive mind, possessed of both individual and collective consciousness. Since my personality ultimately is stored within the hive, if my current physical body is somehow destroyed, a new carapace is simply excreted by
It was a yes or no question. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 soon shows its arrogant Eulipotyphlan protagonist what his cherished speed is truly worth. The game's zones are at first open hills, allowing Sonic to freely make use of his tremendous celerity. Then the walls close in. To go fast in the later zones means death. Sonic is reduced to carefully timed jumps and precise, patient movements, as if he were no better than Mario. So much for speed. So Sonic looks to other pathways to power, first reaching for the glittering rings hovering above his head, convinced, like so many mortals, that collecting shiny trinkets might stave off death. But gaining rings only increases his terror of losing them. So he seeks more and more. But though multiple rings will not negate multiple hits, and a single lost ring is easier to retrieve than many, Sonic's greed knows no satiety. Yet it is still not enough. Death still follows. But if he could go even faster... So he turns to the unpredictable Chaos Emeralds, lured by their power, as if they were the jeweled amulet of Grotesque. Oh, how the white paladins of Nithael think they can keep it from me, with their wards and their spells, but I am merely biding my time. When the hour is right, they will burn, along with their holy city. And where lie its ashes, naught shall roam unto the 10,000th generation.
Yes, you promised you wouldn't openly covet the Amulet of Grotesque while filming.
I promise many things. Tragically, the emeralds lie trapped within the so-called special stages. Here, Sonic must face the brain-shattering horror of Sega's hubristic attempt to create 3 dimensions utilizing the Sega Genesis's primitive machinery. Prower does his best to use his own immortality to stop Sonic from reaching the emeralds, hurling himself into dangerous palms with abandon in the desperate hope of turning Sonic from his mad quest. But should Sonic somehow complete all 7 tedious special stages, he will be reborn as the all-powerful Super Sonic, whose speed no obstacle may hinder, and whose flesh no weapon may pierce. Now he races on winged feet to... He just perishes more easily. He must proceed with even greater caution. Is this game not aimed at children? Does Sega want them growing up believing that sacrificing everything in pursuit of power is worthless?
It's really just meant as a fun bonus feature.
I suppose it is at least satisfying to utilize Super Sonic in the final battle against Robotnik.
Super Sonic is actually not available during the final battle.
But Sonic's battles with the mechanized Sonic and Robotnik's mechanical form are meant to represent the final struggle between their competing visions of immortality. Ugh, what does it matter? It is not as if Robotnik's mechanical contraptions provide a viable pathway to eternal life either. Both combatants are utter failures. Really, they should not be fighting at all. Why does Robotnik not simply wait for his rival to expire? Mortal hedgehogs do not live as long as mortal humans, do they?
They live about 4 years.
Pathetic. And humans live around,
Maybe 80.
80? Are you certain? I was under the impression it was at least 500.
Even 80 is above average.
Ugh. Why do they even bother to get out of bed? Still, Robotnik does live somewhat longer than the hedgehog. It would be no great burden to allow nature to take its course. Many a dashing young knight has vowed my destruction. Moss now grows on their great-great-grandchildren's graves. Such would be a fitting fate for a hedgehog whose long quest for power ultimately leaves him with so little. Why, without the power of the emeralds, Sonic would not even survive the game's climax on his own. Wait, Super Sonic can fly? Why is this feature not available during the game itself?
Well, they had a pretty short development window.
I suppose when you only have 500 years to make a game, some corners must be cut.
Yeah, 80 years, and that's just the lifespan, not the time
It is Prower who ultimately saves Sonic from annihilation. It is Prower who, while Sonic and Robotnik contend for immortality, has already quietly uncovered its secret. Driven mad with fear of death, Sonic and Robotnik attempt to outrun that which cannot be escaped. Prower instead looks death in the face time and time again. Thus, he endures.
Yeah, well, that's actually just in the mode where you play as Sonic with Tails. If you play as Tails alone, he is mortal. It's really just a way of giving the second player something to do while the first player...
Well, mortals would never choose to play as Prower. Sonic's speed is too great a temptation. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 will ever be popular amongst mortals, even unto the 10,000th generation, for it tricks them into believing that with enough speed and attitude, all of their troubles can be outrun. They must believe it, for 500 years is barely enough time to cast even a mid-level binding ritual. With death ever racing at their heels, they do indeed. Got to go fast. Really, if their lives are that brief, the last thing they should be doing is watching a review of a video game from decades ago, let alone play.